If you are a married believer trying to navigate this intimacy thing without shame, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because you are in the right place.
If there's an issue that you haven't dealt with, like I have a friend that I found out that she is in Florida and I live in Florida. She didn't tell me she was coming to Florida. And all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, we're friends. Why didn't you tell me? That is a sort of silly, it's small, but something like that could kind of work on you. It
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with my marriage, but I'm feeling a disconnect within me. And maybe I transfer that over into my relationship. So just
Welcome to the space where we tell our truth. Testimony, healing, breaking shame loose. Learning our bodies and walking by faith. Intimacy God's way, right here is the place. Except for saints. Mondays at 6. We believe in the power of the story. Not just pain, but redemption and glory. Faith in the rhythm, hearts in the mix. Trust in educators. Mondays at 6. We're overcoming by the word of these testimonies. People getting free when we speak what's holy. Healing in our hearts, shame starts to split. Every story told, another chain gets stripped. Learning our bodies, learning His way. Intimacy and faith, walking day by day. This is where we heal, where the truth sticks. Except for saints, Mondays at 6.
I'm so excited to finally share this book with you. Hey God, Can I is available now. Find the link in my bio to get your copy.
Hey friends, quick pause in this lesson because I need to put you onto something that has been blessing so many households. This episode has been sponsored by Covenant Eyes, the accountability app that helps you protect your eyes, your mind, and your marriage. If you're serious about keeping your digital life pure, guarded, and God honoring, Covenant Eyes is a game changer. It helps you to stay accountable online and creates a safe space for your heart and your home. And listen, because you are a part of the Marriage Lab, you get 30 days free when you use my code Marriage Lab. So go ahead, take that step, cover your devices, and cover your covenant.
So thank you again, Mary. I am so excited to have you on the Sex Ed for Saints podcast today. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for all the things. And thank you for your patience with all of the technical difficulties. But today's conversation, I am so excited to get into because we are talking about spicing up the bedroom. And I think that this is a very important conversation to have with so many people, because there are a lot of people in situations where they just feel dry, they feel dead. And so, which goes to my question from my audience. So if you ever have a question that you want answered, I do answer questions on the podcast. They are anonymous. So if you ever wanted to ask, you can head on over to the Marriage Lab LLC on my Instagram. Inside there is a link. You can ask your questions anonymously for me and my guests to answer on the show. And so for the question for today, we usually just, answer the questions how we feel. But this one says, I love my husband. He is a good man, but I am just bored. We've been doing the same routine over and over again for years. It's like we don't try anything. And whenever I try to suggest something different, he just laughs. He laughs it off, or we just don't change anything. So what is it that I can do to get him to try something new? So I think this is a fun question. It's a fun question. So yeah, what do you think about that? Because for me, it's really about reframing, the conversation. But what are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing that comes to me is there could be a fear that's blocking him, even though it's coming out as laughter. If he hasn't identified what his hesitation is, and probably just diving in there with a bunch of questions will not produce the results that she wants. So I think if she were to initiate a few things without discussing it first, which I usually don't recommend, but sometimes that just gets things going and then that opens it up, or in a setting completely outside of the bedroom to bring up hey, every time I suggest something, it seems like you're not interested. Can you help me understand what's going on? So it could just provide that safe space to help him unpack it, because men are I don't want to be stereotypical with this, but they want that macho feeling, and so they may not have even processed. He may not within himself why he is hesitant. So for a
Mhm.
way for the wife to bring it up and still be like, "Ooh, you got all the muscles. I'm crazy about you," then that will make him feel safe and engaged instead of you never and why do you always, find a way to bring it up so that he knows he's still the man, and you just want to know him more and increase your
Yeah.
connection as your ultimate goal.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. The only thing I would add to that is pretty much everything that you said. But start with small shifts in terms of like
Mhm.
having the conversations with him. How have the conversations outside of the bedroom,
Yeah.
not in the bedroom, because I think that's important. You want to make sure that you are, not in that space, right?
Mhm.
So that they're not thinking. Give them time to process and think about, hold on, what are you really asking? And be careful about how you're saying it, right? Because sometimes they might hear it as, oh, I'm bored. I might internalize that as I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
right? And so just be cautious in how relay that information to. So I love this conversation so far already, but Mary, let the audience know
Mhm.
a little bit about who you are.
Right. So little backstory on me. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I am a relationship coach and Christian sex educator. And a lot of times people say, wait, Christian sex educator, can that go together in the same sentence? Which I know you understand about that. But God is so good because my work mirrors my life. So every level that I needed freedom and healing and got it, then I was able to bring that to more of the people that I serve. And I started because my former marriage ended, and there had been abuse, there had been pornography usage, there were a lot of heavy, difficult things. And I just kind of wanted to die, but no, not really. And as God brought me back to life, the key thing that He did was show me my identity in Him. And when that got set in this wonderful place where I just felt his love. I knew I was his daughter. I knew he had so much planned for me. And I began going forward from there. And thankfully, I'm happily remarried. And I've been able to bring my husband today along for this ride because I wasn't doing this when we got married. And God has a sense of humor, but we are one. And I just love that um, God is always for marriage that is honoring Him.
I love that. I love that. Listen, I love how God, knows exactly who we need in our lives.
Mm,
Because a lot of us, I mean, it's a small group of us, but a lot of us, we have to be graced with the husbands that we have because it's like,
yes.
hold on, wait a minute. I didn't exactly sign up for this, but I'm gonna go with it anyway.
Right, right.
I love it. But yeah, we're here today to talk about, spicing it up, spicing up the bedroom, especially during those times when there are dry seasons. And so I
Mhm.
kind of like want to start there because a lot of people, just like the guest, just like the audience member who had their question,
Yes.
they're going through dry seasons. And so how do you think couples typically get or drift into that dry space without even realizing it?
Well, I have a perfect example. It's recent and it's personal. So I want to lead with this because I was there. And here's a scenario that I think it could happen to anyone. Over Christmas, we went to stay with my in-laws who are aging. As a matter of fact, my father-in-law passed away in early January. So we had been gone a total of 17 days, and we had this trauma from the death, and my mother-in-law had a stroke. I mean, just all kinds of stuff going on. And then because your body's worn down from going through all that, my husband and I both got sick when we were traveling, on the plane, everything passed around in the air system there. And so it was weeks where we were just like passing each other in the night, and not being able to really step into who we are and have the spark and the fun. And what I was praying about that, I'm like, God, what do we do? And it's not like there was discord between us, because we'd both been through the same situation and we're on the same page, but still there just was not this drive to get back to intimacy. And as I was praying about that, I realized that we had been in survival mode, and
Mm,
we had been just, keeping our head above water there to get the things done that needed to happen. And we needed to give each other some time to heal.
mhm.
Just, it was a physical and an emotional restoration that needed to happen, and a couple of good Saturday mornings just sleeping in, letting my body catch up. I remember waking up, it was, weeks later, and realizing, oh, I feel like myself again. And
Yeah.
then everything seemed to amp up. And I know that those particular details might not apply to everyone, but if you've had extra stress, if
Mhm.
there's been a major transition in your life, hey, if you've recently become a parent, you have kids, so many stages of life can interrupt
Yeah.
what's going on in your mind, in your emotions, and in your body. And you've got to give yourself permission to allow for being human,
Yeah.
and not being able to keep up with the same stamina that maybe you have in other seasons.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because you're giving very practical
Mm.
reasonable you're giving practical ways of what that looks like. And so what you're basically saying is that it's not usually about the sex, it's usually something a little bit deeper than that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah. So if we're looking at it like that, like what are some of the early signs that a couple is becoming disconnected?
I think that you can look at the rhythm of your day, and my husband is the coffee maker in our marriage, and I know how to make coffee, but it's his thing, and it's just very sweet how he sets it out for me. And so it's a little kindness that he shows to me. And hopefully couples have something like that as a part of their pattern. But if you start to let those things go,
Mhm.
then you realize, oh, I'm not even thinking about them as much. I'm not doing the normal nice things. There might be this irritation that you're not releasing as easily. Anytime you hold on to an issue, you can start to build a wall with it. And
Yeah.
we build walls to self-protect. We don't want to face it, or there's another hurt that's deeper. But if we can press through that and be aware, gosh, I'm not doing the little acts of kindness like I used to, that could be a real heads up.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really good too, because I'm thinking about, that feeds a little bit too emotional because if you've
Mhm.
gotten to that space already, then there's something emotional maybe going on there.
Yeah.
So how does that connect to, the physical, or how does it disconnect from physical disconnection?
Well, God made us in his image, which is spirit, soul, and body. And in my understanding, sexual intimacy is spirit, soul, and body. It's not just a physical act done with our body that ends up being more transactional. It's not just emotional closeness, which is wonderful and really deep,
Yeah.
but there's more. And it's not just spiritual. Well, we read and pray together. It's the whole person coming together. So if there is a deficit in one of those areas, then you're going to feel it. And if that's emotionally where there's a break in the relationship in some way, even triggers from the past that you find out, oh, maybe that didn't get healed like I thought it did. It can definitely put a weight on you that you don't feel the freedom and the safety to give yourself to sexual intimacy like maybe you had in the past.
I love that. I love that. Because it makes me think about, you going back to, the story that you just shared,
Mm.
where you were going through a lot emotionally and as well as physically. And so for somebody they just may be in a routine of,
Yeah.
everything's just happening, and they're not even paying attention to what's going on or the disconnection. So for somebody who is going through something like that, where, well, how can they tell the difference as to, whether or not they are disconnected, or if it's just something that's going on? If it's just
Mm.
busyness is what I want to say.
I think you have to check out both options. And
Mhm.
I know you mentioned earlier about the talks that you have outside of the bedroom. So this would be where I would set it up. I love to see couples have something in their rhythm, their habits, where they have time to talk. I had one couple, and they were like, we go for a walk every night after dinner. I'm
Mhm.
like, well, more power to you. Not everybody can make that happen in their schedule, but it was multiple things were happening. It's physically good, emotionally, it opened up that space. So if you have a regular time to connect, then you can begin to pinpoint,
Mhm.
oh, is this something that we've let other things become priority? Then that gives you a heads up. If there's a an issue that you haven't dealt with, like this is interesting, but I have a friend that I found out that she is in Florida and I live in Florida. She didn't tell me she was coming to Florida, and all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, we're friends. Why didn't you tell me? That is a sort of silly. It's small, but
Mhm.
something like that could kind of work on you. It
Mhm.
has nothing to do with my marriage, but I'm feeling a disconnect within me, and maybe I transfer that over into my relationship. So just that self-awareness of what's going on inside of me. What am I
Yeah,
bringing to the marriage, or what am I not bringing to the marriage that could be
yeah,
a problem? When you can give some time and try to identify it, then I find that gives you the next level of information to make some more smart decisions.
yeah. I love that. I love that. And it seems small, but to you, it was a little bit big, right?
Right,
To have
right.
a friend to move to a state that you're in and not say anything. But when I think about that as it relates to intimacy and the dry spells, why do you think couples don't want to talk about it,
Mm.
or maybe why do you think they experience a little bit of guilt or shame around things like that?
Well, I know that it's easy to talk about sex when everything is going easily, when it's going well. And a lot of couples start into marriage that way. It's just spontaneous. It just happens. I can't keep my hands off of you. And they are not prepared for what happens when you need to be intentional.
Mhm.
Maybe it's not spontaneous anymore because the cares of life have crept in, and you did not learn how to talk about it. So, being able to talk about sex, the problems of sex, is really important. I heard a speaker say recently that they had been married 5 times, to the same person, and what they meant was their marriage was long enough. There had been, like, 5 seasons in
Mhm.
their marriage, and things changed, and especially for women with hormonal changes. I mean, it just affects you again and again and again at different ages, and that can be really awkward to talk about.
Yeah.
You're processing aging or changes in your body for yourself, and then to put that into language and share it with your spouse, it's just
Mhm.
delicate.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because it makes me think about vulnerability, right?
Mm, yeah.
So how does vulnerability play a role in rebuilding intimacy?
Oh, it's everything. And I think even before you get to vulnerability, you have to have safety, you have to
Mhm.
have trust. We take it for granted. We're like, "Well, I'm married to you. Of course I trust you." But it may not be that cut and dry. Sometimes we second guess the things that our spouse does, and those little irritations can creep in there. But being vulnerable is, I think you have to be vulnerable with yourself first
Mhm.
before you can expect your spouse to treat you that way, or you can show up that way with your spouse. Uh,
Mhm.
The, the reason I say that is if we expect our spouse to do their job plus our job, then we have put them at a disadvantage. So we
Yeah.
need to be that honest with ourselves. Why am I feeling hesitant or distant? Process that a little bit. And when you are have a little bit more clarity, that seems to be a better time to bring up that kind of a conversation.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Earlier you were talking about identity, right?
Mm.
And so I want to find out, like, how does, someone's personal narrative about themselves impact their sex life in their marriage?
Oh my goodness. Yes, this is so good. Self value
Hmm.
determines so much, and not look at me, I am so valuable, but this place of there is a sense of confidence and security
Hmm.
that shows up in marriage with whatever degree that it's there. If you are thinking, oh, what will my spouse think or say if I do this? And my goodness, you're so exposed during sex, what you look like, what you sound like. I mean, that it can be really scary to
Hmm.
be that vulnerable. But if you are working on your self value, knowing, okay, I know who God made me to be, that is my security, then that just helps you. I think even the way you stand and the way you talk, the way you present yourself is
Yeah.
different when that level of confidence and security is at a stronger place.
I love that. I love that. I want to kind of unpack that a little bit because what does that look like for somebody to be able to get their confidence and feel sexy within themselves to be able to transfer that over?
Well, my process is identifying why I'm not there, so to speak.
Mhm.
I know in my past that there were questions I had about my value.
Mm.
And if I were to crunch that all the way down to like a core lie I believed about myself, it was that I was unlovable.
Mm.
And if you feel that way, which is similar to being not good enough, but if you feel that way, then you can't give or receive love. And you're going to limit yourself, you're going to limit your spouse. So when I work with couples and we're able to get to that point, knowing that God is your source
Yeah.
is, I mean, there's just so many levels of peace that brings to you. You don't have to have it all figured out. I
Yeah.
mean, if we're like his sheep and he's the shepherd and he leads us, there's so much peace at that place. So that is a process, and
Yeah.
identifying what do I believe about myself that doesn't line up with what God says. And
Mhm.
there are so many passages of scripture that give hope and encouragement and direction. It's an exchange. I'm
Yeah.
going to give away the lie that I've believed about myself, and I'm going to receive to my heart what God says. And it's not a once and done. It's definitely daily. And the quicker we are to recognize, oh, I'm slipping into that
Mhm.
stinking thinking again,
Mhm.
then you're able to redirect
Yeah.
and get that place of peace. And when you're at that place of peace, then your life is not drained and you have more energy to put into your spark and being your sassy self and
Mhm.
even thinking about passion. Because if
Mhm.
you are feeling really negative about yourself or about life, then passion is just not something that is at um, a strong place for all the right reasons, at least.
Mhm. I love that. I love that because you're showing people that you have to be connected to yourself,
Mm,
and then that transfers over to your relationship. And
Yeah.
so I think that's really, really good. And so if a couple realizes that they are in a dry season, what is the first practical step that they can take?
Oh, well, we talked a little bit about your kindness check. How much am I doing here?
Mhm.
But there's another thing that I always suggest, and I get some pushback on this, but it is prioritizing fun.
Mm,
Doing fun things you both enjoy, not just, "Oh, I've gotta go to the museum," or, "I've gotta go to the football game."
mhm.
Not just doing something that your spouse wants, but something that you both find as fun, then that brings that element back to life. I know as adults, we have so much on our plate, and when we have just a few minutes to ourselves, it's
Mhm.
hard to go, "Let's just go be wild and crazy and carefree." But really, that is gonna be the beginning of a spark, and it helps you look forward to the next time that you're together because it feels good. All of those endorphins are
Yeah.
kicking in, and fun gets you going in the right direction. It gets you future thinking, and hey, my spouse is in my future, and all of the ways that you want to keep your spark alive.
I love that. I love that because a lot of people are not prioritizing fun at all.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So when it comes to that, that's almost like rebuilding intimacy,
Mm.
rebuilding that emotional connection. Why do you think that's so physical? Well, why do you think that's so important before jumping straight back into, physical?
Well, primarily for women, if they don't have the emotional connection, there's no way they're going to be able to give their body
Mhm.
to sex. They will just be like disassociate, and we don't want that
Yeah,
at all. A woman has to give her mental yes before she can give her physical yes. And the way she gets to her mental yes might be different every single day. Now, I know I have some husbands that are giving me grief over that, but wait, I figured it out yesterday. Why is she different today? And we get to ask God about that one. But there is this passage in Proverbs that talks about the way of a woman and the mystery that she has about her. So to reframe it and think, oh, the way I get to know you, the way I get to understand you changes every day. But the emotional connection has to happen because she wants to give herself. She wants to fully invest in that sexual experience, but she has to feel safe and she
yeah.
has to be able to trust. And both of those come out of emotional connection.
I absolutely love that. I love it. I love it because just as you said, right? Like there is something valuable in understanding the emotions of a woman and
Mm.
how that is able to transfer over. And I want to talk a little bit about, performance and the pressure to perform, especially
Ah.
after things have been bad. Like how does that correlate?
Ooh, performance can sneak in and, but it's fake. If we are trying to measure up to something, if we are trying to be exactly who we were before the dry spell, we have
Mhm.
to give ourselves permission to let some of that go. In these different stages of life, I also find that when things are changing, when maybe we really have lost an ability, I talk to a lot of couples and hey, maybe the wife's going through menopause. And so things are physically different. There may be a grieving that needs to happen.
Mm,
And we push back on that because it is uncomfortable. The thing is, if we don't address it, then it builds. And that's something that we don't want to build. So being able to be aware of what's happening in the relationship and just continuing to say, well, it's different now. Okay. But we're still together. And I'm also for humor, even in the bedroom. If there's a total flop on something that you're trying, feel free to laugh. Now, it may change the mood a little, but it still makes you both very authentic and real and in the same space so that, oh, I've got to measure up to what they want. No, it's both of you. Everything that you do in your sex life needs to be mutually satisfying and respectful. So it's about both of you showing up and both of you being present with what's happening.
Yeah, I love that because there has to be some type of humor sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to be able to laugh at even the silly things.
Right, right.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about I hear all the time, schedule sex, don't schedule
Mm.
sex. Like, which one is it? Should we be scheduling? Should we not be scheduling? Like, how does that work?
I have the perfect combination because I have worked on those scenarios with couples, and this is to break down your week. Of course, there's 7 days, and to have 3 days go to one spouse, 3 days go to another spouse for initiating. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to initiate each one of your 3 days. It just means you have the opportunity to plan and be creative and give thought to initiating in those 3 days. And then there's the spare day, whatever that is for you, Sunday or Saturday. And then either one of you could initiate. So scheduling is not just we got to check this box and make sure that it happens. It is let's take responsibility for prioritizing the connection in our marriage. But I love that you still have anticipation of, oh, well, he's got tonight, I wonder if he's going to plan anything or not. So it's sort of a compromise. It
Mhm.
is scheduling, but there's still a lot of freedom with it.
I love that because you're meeting in the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're making space for, what you want as well as what I like. So
Mhm.
that's a good way for couples to, get together and work on that. And so let's talk about what are some things that couples can do to, essentially spice up their marriage when they realize, hey, we want to work on this. What are some things that they can do?
Wow. Oh, well, something I thought of earlier, and it really fits now. I have a fun, um, website that I've recommended, and it's not mine, but it has, Christian-friendly sex positions, and I don't remember, there's over 200 or something crazy. Now, the reason they're Christian friendly is because of the drawings. They just use a little pink peg and a little blue peg. It looks like creatures from the game of Twister or something.
Mhm.
And you're like, "Where is that leg going? What is that arm doing?" They make me laugh, but if you try one of those positions, then you have fun to know, okay, is this working for us or not? And the reason I explain that is because in my mind, as long as it is mutually respectful and satisfying, they're all Christian friendly positions.
Yeah.
It just kind of lets lift that lid off right there. But so trying new positions is a fun thing to do. If your living situation affords you the opportunity to try different rooms in your house, try different times of the day. It really, there's been some research done on the best time of the day as far as testosterone levels and different hormonal things. So knowing your body and knowing your season in life will help you be able to determine where you fall there. Wow, I mean, the time in the shower and the hot
Yeah.
tub, just on and on. There are a lot of things that you can do. I encourage dress up and role play, anything, as I said, that is mutually satisfying and respectful. It's kind of like the sky's the limit if that's where you both want to go with it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that because you're letting Christians know that they're not limited to just one
Mm,
particular thing. There is variety, and I'm a firm believer in, having the ability to explore.
yeah.
God desires exploration. He never puts us in situations where it's just supposed to remain the same. And so
Mm.
I love that. I love that. And let's talk a little bit about, okay, a little bit about rejection. So,
Mm.
you're in the space where you want to explore, but your spouse is kind of rejecting what it is that you want to do. How does that affect, you know, desire?
Well, I would maybe not use the word reject. I would say it is a no for now, could
Mhm,
be a temporary no.
mhm,
And if there's a lot of pressure that if you don't do this, I won't feel loved,
mhm,
ooh, then that no is going to last a whole lot longer. But we have to realize that that no that a spouse gives may not be directed towards you at all. Probably
mhm,
99% is not about you. There's something within them that they're just like, no, I'm not quite ready for that. And
mhm,
a lot of this goes back to the beliefs that you have about sex that started when you were a child, even if they were not articulated. We catch more than we're taught, so to speak,
mhm,
and you picked up on messages from your family, how they treated one another. And you certainly in the church culture, oh my goodness, there's so much we could unpack there about what is misrepresented by traditional church teachings, what silence, what problems that also causes. So understanding the no is not connecting it with rejection. If you are feeling a rejection or offended that your spouse is pausing on this, then get some thought towards why that's going on inside of you.
mhm,
Do they still love you? Do you still love them? Can you give some grace and some space to this one issue? And
mhm,
then be able to maybe go back and revisit it in a month, in 3 months, and say, "Have you thought about trying this thing anymore?" And just using it as a bridge to more closeness instead of a wall that it just brings up so many emotions that we could never go back there.
yeah, I love that. I love that. Because you mentioned something, you know, we could try it again in 3 or 4 months.
Mm.
And so I want to talk a little bit about, you know, what does patience look like in trying
Oh.
to rebuild that desire?
Wow, that is so, important and, um, just a gift that you are giving to your spouse, a gift that you are giving to your marriage when you are able to walk in patience and to know that God is your source. I named my company Limitless Intimacy, not because, oh, we're going to have so much intimacy, we're wild. No, God is our source. And
Mhm.
when you know that you can go back to God for patience, for love, for yourself, for your spouse, then that is going to be some encouragement for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You know, I always hear people, you know, talk about bad sex and you know, things like that. And I'm I'm a believer of, you know, what God created is not essentially bad, right?
Mm.
So even during the moments of bad, there are opportunities for good within that. What would you say is considered, you know, bad sex?
Wow. Right off the top of my head, bad can be the not having your expectations met.
Hmm.
Bad could be if it is painful. Bad could be if you've crossed the line over what feels honoring and what feels safe for your spouse.
Yeah, and that's a good one. That's a good one because that would actually be bad. Like you want to
Mm.
make sure that you are staying within the moral grounds of, you know, what God would allow. And a lot of things He's very clear on about that. And so that's very good. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So what how can couples rebuild anticipation together, you know, after years together?
Ooh. Um, hey, I love the idea of surprise dates
Mhm,
and meet me next weekend, next Friday night, and I've got the whole thing planned.
mhm,
Things that you can do to build anticipation
mhm,
and knowing your spouse's love language and
mhm.
finding new ways to show that. There's
Yeah.
little things that rebuild the bond, and then you can go from there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. We could be here talking about, this all day long. And I love the conversation. But what are some things that you would, or some advice that you would give to someone who is in a dry season and just desiring more for their relationship? What is the advice that you would give someone?
I would certainly pray, not in a, oh, you got to pray, but knowing that God designed sex in marriage to be this wonderful gift. And He knows exactly what you need right now. So pray for new ideas, pray
Yeah.
for creative ways to suggest them and request them, pray for, any hesitations that you have had so that you are now able to step into something new. Pray for weight to be lifted that you've carried that you weren't aware of. There's so many ways to encourage yourself and to create a path forward with your spouse.
I love that. I love that because prayer answers a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah.
It really does, which brings me to, helping people to understand grace, right?
Mm.
So let's talk a little bit about that real quick.
That's so deep because and we haven't gotten into areas where you have been sinned against. And if there have been things from outside the marriage that have tried to rob you of your integrity, then there are definitely levels of grace to walk in towards that healing and each person rebuilding themselves, but knowing that that is another area that you're drawing from God because you can really come to the end of yourself pretty quickly if you have been hurt. But knowing that God has a plan to rebuild your heart and everything that you need going forward.
I love that. I love that because we all need grace,
Mm.
especially in situations where we have been broken.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And I just want to ask, I want to close out with, like what is some encouragement that you would give to somebody who feels discouraged right now?
Mm. I want you to know this is a moment in time. This
Hmm.
is not forever. When Jesus asked his followers to get in the boat and go to the other side, it meant there was another side. So just
Yeah,
see that you are going through this. You are not staying here, and that there are many more ways for you to continue to grow your relationship. And just pray that God will surprise you with his love and with those ideas that are going to help build your bond.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for that.
Mm.
So I want to ask, is there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to answer or that you wanted to say to the audience who is watching?
Oh, wow. I just know that uh, of my sayings that got me started and has been true to me is to see yourself with eyes of love,
Mm,
because you taking care of you is a big job. Basically it's the only job, and you're the only one that you can control. So to
mhm.
know that you can continue bringing yourself before God and having things healed and having things restored, that is absolutely going to be a blessing to your marriage.
I love that. I love you. Thank you for that information. And Miss Mary, where can people find you? Where can they reach you? How can they contact you?
Yes. So my website is limitlessintimacy.com. I also have the Sexual Wholeness Revival podcast, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Mary Whitman-Ortiz. So a lot of different names there, but I'm happy to connect and encourage people right where they are.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary, for such a wonderful episode. You've brought so much value to individuals who might be struggling and understanding, how to help them with their season of dryness, right?
Mm.
You gave them tools, practical tools that they can use on how to schedule and how to be more intimate and how to be more vulnerable. And I really hope that, those who are watching, that you can see the value in this episode and know that, dry seasons are only for a season.
Yeah.
You can do these practical things that Mary suggested, so that you can enhance your bedroom and just, get to know your spouse a little bit more, because you're not going to land there forever, right? You and your
Right.
spouse can use this as an opportunity to grow and, just be more in tune with yourselves when you come out on the other side of this. And so thank you all for tuning into this episode. Until next time, bye.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Now, friends, if this conversation blessed you, do me a favor. Take a moment to like, leave a review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, because you already know we need more faith filled, real conversations like this in the world. And listen, I know you heard a gem today, something that made you pause, something that made you think, something that made you say, woo, this was for me. But friend, it might not be just for you. So go ahead and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to a friend, a spouse, a sister in Christ, somebody who's been feeling stuck or silent in this area. Let's spread healing, freedom, and truth one conversation at a time. And until next time, we're going to get candid, but keep it God. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Days at 6, come and sing this out.